chat there. We might be able to. We just kick off and. All right. Okay, welcome everybody to another Energy Savers webinar. I'm John from QFF, and today our presentation is on energy, carbon, and digital IoT, and how technology has a part to play, I guess, in keeping an eye on what's going on farms. So today we have guest host Manfred from Fluxpower, where he will dive into his technology, his dashboard, what it monitors, and what he's doing moving forward. So just to let you know, we are recording this presentation. Feel free to pop any questions in the chat bar as we go, and these slides will be available at the end of the webinar. So firstly, I'll provide a quick introduction of QFF's current projects and why. Energy and carbon, a basic understanding of why it's important to consider and monitor these two factors on site. I'll run through our energy efficiency audit program, the real-time monitoring as part of that, and what these devices can value add on farms. We'll then pass over to Manfred from Fluxpower, where he'll give an insight into the dashboard, basically why he developed the dashboard, its benefits, and what's new and what's coming up in the future. We'll quickly wrap up, show you some tools and more info with all the links they'll be provided should you need a copy of the webinar. So a quick introduction of QFF, our current projects. Basically our major project at the minute is the Energy Savers, where we delivered 180 audits Queensland wide. Off the back of this program, we developed case studies and a range of information and resources to help deliver those learnings to farmers. As part of that program, we installed 50 real-time energy monitors statewide with the help of Manfred and his dashboard. Moving on from the Energy Savers, we undertook a LoRaWAN Digital IoT program using smart sensors on exemplar sites. These sites are two mixed horticultural enterprises, and this is aimed at improving both energy and resource use and efficiency for those farms. Off the back of the Energy Savers, we continued further with microgrids, which offers benefits to agricultural communities and energy consumers throughout the community outside of those farm boundaries. It's unpacking some of the flow and benefits, such as insurance, real-time trading, potentially increased income sources, and there are some webinars available as part of that program, as seen with links there. We're also involved in the Carbon Farming Land Restoration Fund, where this provides an avenue for farms to make improvements to natural capital, improving resilience, and also providing additional income streams for farms. With this, there is some climate adaptation going on, which centres on continuous improvement and helps the capacity for farmers to deal with the changing climate. A range of tools are available from that program. At the end of the day, the idea is to first look for efficiency measures by reducing energy consumption and carbon emissions, remove, then sequester, mitigate, and adapt. So firstly, we'll look at a basic understanding of consumption and emissions, why it is important to understand what you are using on site. Carbon emissions come in the form of scope 1, 2, and 3, direct being the burning of fuel and diesel on farm, and by the use of fertilisers, by clearing vegetation from livestock. Scope 2 is indirect from the use of purchased grid electricity, and this is where Manfred's advancements are coming into their own to help monitor that. Scope 3 is from the supply chains, distribution, use and disposal of goods and services. I guess we have to ask ourselves why. The monitoring, firstly, it provides a baseline in kilowatt hours, and in Manfred's case, costs in real time, and the tons of dioxide equivalents. This includes, well, with other programs, this includes the amount of carbon dioxide plus any other greenhouse gases to a number of carbon units from use of fertilisers and that indirect use of resource. It helps with action, and this can be through the use of showing business cases by implementing energy efficiency measures, moving to clean energy generation on site, and help advise on other programs like carbon abatement. It's important to consider the results and to record, measure and verify, then continue to monitor what is going on site with the help of technology. Overall, it's a vision to contribute to Queensland's 2030 target and reduce greenhouse gases based on the Paris Agreement. Through this, we can achieve a balance between greenhouse gas emissions produced and greenhouse gases taken out of the atmosphere towards net zero. So firstly, I will just talk a little bit about our energy efficiency program and provide a little bit of an overview, some of the savings and the findings through that. The program was part of the Queensland Government's $2 billion Affordable Energy Plan. It was aimed at assisting businesses realise energy savings and cost savings and continual productivity improvements on farm. So this might be through the use of an increase in water use, although that leads to an increase in energy use. The increase in production can bring down that kilowatt hours per megalitre used and so forth. The program was 180 audits on various farming industries, nursery, piggeries, horticulture, dairies and the likes. The program unpacked potential, the actuals in the measurement and verification process as the farms moved through and implemented some of those recommendations in the program. The total potential savings in 3 key areas are quite significant. You can see that costs, energy in that range is quite high, with that important factor of carbon removed of 6,862 tonnes. Some of those savings include that production benefit, and as we go forward, the measurement and verification process realises actual savings and confirms our findings to date. To update you on that, the measurement and verification and the actuals, they are proving above and beyond most of the findings in the audits. So it's fair to say that those savings could definitely be realised. As mentioned, and a quick little case study snippet there, we measured across a range of industries, so that's horticulture, piggeries, dairies, and the findings and results. We broke that down into certain areas of technology and unpacked each of those. There's a lot of quick wins that come out of the program. That can be low, very low, and no cost. Part of that also is pumping and irrigation, so looking at irrigation design, replacing pumps, installing variable speed drives, etc., etc. There's heating, ventilation and cooling, looking at ventilation fans, cold rooms, door seals, replacement curtains. Heating might be for nursery, might be in the case of new electric mats, etc., etc. Lighting in general, that was aimed at LEDs mainly, retrofitting and replacing. It's a good idea to go through and replace them as they fail. Some of the paybacks were high, so just keep that in mind. General was more moving towards installing an infrastructure that is aimed at installing those pumping and irrigation recommendations and the likes. We unpacked some solar pumps, solar and battery systems, generator, moving to a generator, diesel generator. Some of the battery systems do show positive paybacks. They would be on generally your swirl lines. Some of the larger standalone batteries prove that the paybacks aren't quite there, but over time, we figure that this might come down. It's a good idea to keep an eye on that. There was technology uncovered, so that could be soil sensors, the installation of real-time energy meters, basically keeping an eye on your utilisation during your clean energy generation periods, predominantly during the day, and shifting some of that use under that solar window. So across the program, there was 110 case studies delivered on a broad range of topics. These are implemented and proposed across a wide range of farming industries, individual sites, and that technology breakdown. So there could be a pumping and irrigation case study which shows all the findings as a collective. Part of that, you can view those on the website along with the info and resources. So summing up from the projects, there are direct and indirect benefits, and I guess having those projects is a holistic way of moving towards a more resilient and sustainable future. So some of the direct savings from the energy efficiency program can be through reduction in consumption and those cost savings. Recommendations of renewable energy on site, so using that renewable energy from the solar system, and the higher gross value per megalitre or kilowatt hour consumed. Some of the indirect benefits, and this could be aimed more at the land restoration projects and the carbon projects. Bear in mind that most of those projects are aimed at some of the bigger sites, cattle and revegetation. But as we move forward, we are looking at ways to bring in some methodology for the smaller sites and horticulture, etc. So some of these benefits can be environmental through revegetation. That could be livestock shading, increased biodiversity, and lowering of water tables. Soil carbon, an increase in soil carbon can lead to an increase in soil water capacity, I guess higher water efficiencies and improved productivity, resilience, increased revenue through the sale of carbon credits, through private markets, etc. And opening up of new markets, so appealing to new customers that products could be low carbon or carbon neutral. So the resulting profit from the carbon project is a result of those carbon emissions and carbon credits gained. So as a whole, looking at energy efficiency and some of those other projects, it can really lead to bigger savings on site. As mentioned, and technology does have a part to play in some of these projects and these systems. We installed 50 real-time energy monitoring devices. Keep in mind, if there is a device installed on site, you should log in, see where you can make changes to that energy use, bringing it in under that solar window, ensure correct operation, and just become familiar with how and when you're using your energy. The meters were aimed at accessing data for decision making to help farmers improve their energy knowledge all round. Further, and only recently, real-time carbon intensity from that consumption was brought into the dashboard, where Manfred will discuss that a little bit further. The device. We installed a Watt-Watcher device. It's a monitoring device that sends the data to the cloud. These devices are capable of monitoring 6 single-phase or 2 3-phase circuits. So the device captures the kilowatts in real time, where it's transformed on Manfred's dashboard. Some of these devices are switchable, so that allows for that future automation. At the moment, you can operate that manually by turning the pump on or whatever circuits you would like to turn on. Value adding for those meters provides great avenues to explore additional projects. That could be the microgrids, so looking at energy use as a collective across a number of sites. the optimization and demand control. I guess looking at that energy use and turning things on and off manually, potentially, or that could be through the use of automation moving forward. Collectively, you can then start looking at purchase power agreements, and that could be through an industry-wide approach, or I guess a community approach, or a site approach. Okay, that's it for me for the moment. I'll hand over to Manfred, where he'll give himself a quick introduction and go through his platform and what it can provide.
Thanks, John. And I'll just leave you in charge of the slides. So Fluxpower is a clean tech startup, software startup based in Brisbane. It was incorporated in 2018, and I am the founder. We have a small team that is working remotely, and occasionally we meet in person in Brisbane. And so this project, the first iteration of the product adopted by QFF, kicked off in 2019, and we then fully rebuilt the product in 2020, and more recently have created some additional functionality around real-time carbon accounting. But as you can see here, as John mentioned before, the 50 watt-watcher devices installed all over regional Queensland at these sites, and we pull the data in from watt-watcher's cloud by their API, and then we combine it with our electricity tariff data, which has been collected from the bills of the participants in order to be able to display that in the app in real time. And so some of these sites have a flat energy use tariff. Some of them have like peak off peak shoulder, and some also include a demand tariff as well. So the first iteration of the app is actually just a web application, and but as you can see on your screen there, those screenshots, it is actually usable from a mobile device through the browser. Next slide. So on that previous slide and this slide here, and there's this site has two 3-phase loads that are being monitored, and originally the app displayed in units of live power, so kilowatts, and energy across periods of day, week, month, and year. And in the units, you're able to toggle that up the top right-hand corner between energy and dollars, depending on what you want to see for that particular occasion. So as you can see here, this particular site is a very energy-intensive site, which is consuming a lot of energy during the working hours. If we flick back the slide there, John, just for a moment. So during the working hours, you can see that it is there's quite a lot of energy use that makes it a great candidate for solar. So if you go to the next slide again, many of the farm sites actually did this. They were able to have a solar system sized up, and then the installers and energy auditors were able to confidently predict how much the farmer would be able to save if they were to go ahead with the project. They are able to see the payback period, and then that usually being between 3 and 4 years. And some of these sites have been able to since save considerable amount of cost, on their electricity bills. So if you go to the next slide there, John. So the Energy Savers program included participants from all over Queensland, and the requirements were that we enabled data sharing. And that's fundamental to extrapolate the learnings beyond this project. So to handle this and to also look out for the privacy of the participants involved, we created a special dashboard access that facilitates viewing all of the sites, but ensures that no participants' data can be identified. So no particular site or personal data can be identified. And that also enable us to use the data exports via CSV, which also emits any identifiable information that would help to identify the site. So full privacy to the participants involved, but maximum opportunity to take learnings from the data that was that's been collected. Next slide there. So as John mentioned, the WattWatcher devices do have the potential to control loads. So in addition to monitoring, that capability is fairly simple. It is as simple as toggling on or off a load to power or depower that load. And we can activate that via a manual toggle inside the app, or also via APIs, which is where it starts to become more interesting. And so you can combine custom rules, so based on time of day or day of week, which is pretty sort of standard, but it can be anything at all that you can get, that we can get a bit of information about. So that could be, for example, switching off the daily irrigation if rainfall is above X millimeters in the last 24 hours. And so these rules can be combined arbitrarily. You know, you can switch off loads if the power is cheap at a particular time, or if the carbon intensity of the grid is particularly low, and you're looking to get within a threshold for your emissions reduction. We could go to the next slide there. So more recently, we extended that. That was a 2-year project, and we've just extended it for another 12 months and added in the functionality of real-time carbon accounting. So these, you can see the emissions here, real-time emissions. And this is, you know, this is particularly interesting because the market is changing from all sides. It's not just government. There is a push coming up, consumer-led push to understand supply chains for all types of reasons, including for their emissions intensity. So this, as you can see, we've added where we had the switch up the top, the switch between top right-hand side, the switch between energy and dollars units. We've now also got emissions. And if you go to the next slide there, John, if you've got a site that has solar, that's going to show your emissions abated. This particular, I took this image midnight last night, so in real time there was no solar, but you can look back to the middle of the day, and that particular site had already saved, it looks like, about 11 kilos there of carbon emissions that it did not emit because it was not increasing demand from the grid. So we're calculating the emissions intensity of the grid every 5 minutes. And that is, I guess, a little bit unique. A lot of the other times when you will see emissions intensity of the grid or your carbon emissions, it is based on a averaged emissions. But in reality, emissions aren't really averaged. The emissions intensity of the grid changes every 5 minutes as the mix of generators changes every 5 minutes. So just as the spot price of electricity can be wildly different, so too is the emissions intensity of the grid. Every 5 minutes that changes, and so taking an averaged look at it is really, can be I guess, like a little bit misleading, and technology does enable us to be accurate. You could go to the next slide there, John. And so looking out beyond, 2022 and beyond, we are going to start refocusing back to our core area. We do care a lot about real-time energy monitoring to enable real-time payments for electricity, and to track CO2 in real time as well. We are in the process of commercializing our Flux Pay technology, which enables end user sites, so households, businesses, large scale, commercial and industrial sites as well, to be able to pay and be paid for their electricity in real time as they're consuming or producing, feeding back into the grid. And so what that means is these sites are able to pay their retailer. They don't have a bill at the end of 3 months. They're paying in real time as they're consuming the electricity, and the retailer is offering them a significant discount for doing that. Also interesting, if they're feeding electricity back into the grid rather than getting a credit off their bill later, which is somewhat abstract and then deferred because it's not coming until it's when the bill is showing up. We're able to, with Flux Pay, the retailer is paying that site in real time, so their account balance is going up in real time as they're feeding electricity back into the grid. And so this is a bit more of an incentive to participate in demand response too. If there's a high incentive tariff to feed back into the grid when the grid needs it, that can be quite attractive. So that's probably an added bonus. If you did have battery, it's something that is probably not being factored into I guess the cash flow and paybacks of battery technology. If you're able to participate in real time, that can be a little bit more attractive. So that's where we're going in 2022. We've recently partnered up with a large electricity retailer generator with Australia-wide operations, but they do have some customers and farms in Queensland, and they have I guess like a significant array of types of projects. So all types of solar utility, biogas, wind. They're a 100% renewable resource electricity provider, and they've got some great products in and solutions in the PPA area, as well as solutions for other electricity retailers. So combining with them, we'll have a further announcement about that soon. There may be some alignment there with some of the avenues that QFF is pursuing on behalf of the farmers. So yeah, that's where we're headed, and thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Manfred. Yeah, it looks like a pretty good bit of kit there, and I can see definitely the benefits that that'll bring as we move forward. I think it's important to know that it is a combined effort, and technology definitely has that role to play. I guess in monitoring and being able to efficiently use energy through the use of automation or whatever it is that those commands that you might want to put in there to switch things on and off, combined with some of the efforts with those land restoration projects, and mate, I think it's a great idea. So yeah, good stuff. And just summing up, for the webinar for everybody, it's important, I guess, for you guys to understand your energy and carbon footprint as we move forward. It is important. There are markets opening up, and there is a lot of consumer maybe biases, I suppose, or whatever it is you want to call it. They want to see what's going on, especially in farming and energy use. I guess you can start by setting goals and thinking of additional benefits that the technology or some of these projects might bring to your site. What markets there might be around. Can you improve productivity through some of these? Then investigate those opportunities, be that in carbon, energy, some of those demand reduction things on site with technology, the new pumps. It all adds up. I guess if you don't have the time or the energy, you can consider a detailed analysis using an approved auditor. That does cost a little bit of money, but as we were talking about earlier, those paybacks are definitely there in a lot of areas, and those auditors will look at a whole range of items on site. So it's not limited to one piece of kit. They'll give you those business cases. I guess you guys can run away and do they stack up, and do you want to make those changes, and do they need to be made? So I guess you might consider replacing your pump at the end of the life, and each business is different. So it's important to weigh up those business cases and see if it weighs up there. It's also important to record and monitor those results. So using that technology like Manfred's, it's a great bit of kit. And as we move forward, I guess that carbon monitoring is going to be very important for farms and the community. So just quickly, there are a lot of information pieces and tools around. There's a whole range there, I guess, to look at measuring and managing emissions, how to do it in the agriculture industry. There's some frameworks. Yeah, there's a whole range of stuff that you can dive into, and we've got some links there for you guys to explore if needed. As you can see, Manfred's available at that email address there. We're always available at energysavers@qff.org.au. And that's about it from us. Manfred, did you have any other comments, mate?
No. I think we covered everything pretty well there. Yeah, thanks very much for hosting us, and we look forward to helping any of you out there. If you want to pursue this with these energy savings opportunities are always going to be there. You can save a lot of money, help your help your farm do better. Yeah, reach out to QFF and
yeah, good stuff.
Thanks, John.
No worries. Stop recording.